I want to speak to you of all the years I've been a preacher. There have been 27 of them. I believe it's 28 or thereabouts. Of all the years that I've been a preacher and all the books that I have studied, I have read thinker after thinker. I have read preacher after preacher. I've read non-believer after non-believer. I've read a whole lot of things I had no business reading. But I've been a preacher and a pastor for 27 years. But I've never in all my days, I've never heard anybody praise Satan. I've never heard anybody say, blessed be the name of Satan. Praise Satan, praise Lucifer, for he is indeed a mighty conqueror. I've never heard anybody do that before. Most people, no matter how they feel about God or what religion they subscribe to, they are wise enough not to praise Satan. They may not want to give Jesus the glory. And then the things that they do in their lives may be giving Satan praise. But I've never in all of my years of ministry and the years that I've lived on this planet, I've never heard anybody praise Satan until just recently. Now I have a book here on this holy altar, this holy desk. I have a book here today that's called The Rules for Radicals. And it was written by a man named Saul Alinsky. Now, you may have remembered throughout the campaign of this recent presidential campaign, you may have remembered some of the pundits on television and some of the, I think, debates that were held and some of the discussions that were held. That Barack Hussein Obama, that his mentor was Saul Alinsky. And that his community organizing, strategizing, and bringing people together in low-income neighborhoods and organizing them for political power and strength. You may have heard that name mentioned. I'm sure Sean Hannity has mentioned it 1,000 times if he has mentioned it once. I'm sure you've heard it. You've also heard that Mr. Obama stated that he was a community organizer and that is the one claim to fame that he had. And that he, of course, being a community organizer, wanted to bring change here to America. That he wanted to bring change here to America and thusly to the world. Some of you who've read a few books and had the opportunity to broaden your exposure and to broaden your horizons, therefore increase your opportunity to live. To increase your opportunity as you broaden your horizons, you integrate with thoughts other than your own and ideas other than your own and the community and the culture from which you sprang. Some of you have had the opportunity to do that, and if you had, maybe some of you read the book by Machiavelli called The Prince. Well, Machiavelli was a writer like Saul Alinsky, and Machiavelli's whole purpose in writing was to teach people who have power to keep that power. To keep it away from the masses and to keep people that are poor and to keep them poor and how to strategize and get that done. Well, Saul Alinsky is just the opposite. He's a person who has written prolifically about how to take power from the haves and deliver it to those that have not. He is prolific in that. And I'm not here to promote his book, but I think it'll be a good thing if you will read it. And in every other page, you'll see the word change at least 15 times per page. So what we heard in the recent election was not someone's fresh ideas, but they were rehashed ideas of this Saul Alinsky. Now, I've stated to you that all the years that I've lived, I've heard a lot of things. I've heard people blaspheme. I've heard people curse. I've heard that Job's wife told him to curse God and die. I've heard all of that, and that's fine. But I've never heard anybody praise Satan. Now, I'm going to read to you the very first page of this book of Rules for Radicals. This man who is the mentor, who is the God of Barack Hussein Obama, and he will acknowledge such. He has written in the very first page, he's quoted several people. One is Rabbi Hillel, where Rabbi Hillel said, where there are no men, be thou a man. Y'all stand for this, please. He also has quoted Thomas Paine, where it says, let them call me rebel and welcome. I feel no concern from it, but I should suffer the misery of devils were I to make a whore of my soul. And this is from the great statesman Thomas Paine. Saul Alinsky is quoting him, or at least demonstrating this quote here in the very opening pages of his book of Rules for Radicals. But then he writes these words as well. He says, lest we forget at least an over-the-shoulder acknowledgement to the very first radical from whom all our legends, mythology, and history, and who is to know where mythology leaves off and history begins, or which is which. The first radical known to man who rebelled against the establishment and did it so effectively that he at least won his own kingdom was Lucifer. And it signed Saul Alinsky. Now he goes on in this book to praise Satan. He says Satan was the first and the most effective radical, and we ought to take our example of stealing kingdoms from Lucifer. That's what this man has written. You want the book? Here it is. Go buy it. Here it is. And this is Barack Hussein Obama's Bible. He worships this man. Now, Saul Alinsky worships Satan. He says we ought to acknowledge him, and that we ought to acknowledge the fact that he was the first radical who won his own kingdom. You go and do likewise. And I want to get this message out to every ear that will hear it. There is a man that has lived among us, that has written in a book several hundred pages praising Lucifer. And notice he doesn't call him Satan. Satan is his fallen name. That's what we call him when we want to damn him. But this Saul Alinsky still calls him Lucifer and talks about the power that he's been able to garner. And he does have this kingdom. Oh yeah, this is his kingdom. Don't get bent out of shape. Even Jesus said, this world is not my kingdom. Whereso I fight for, this belongs to Satan. And when Satan offered it to Jesus, he said, if you'll just bow down and worship me. You see all these kingdoms, you see the Taj Mahal, you see those beautiful buildings over there in Moscow designed by those great architects. You won't die. You see all the marching armies of Germany and of Russia and of China. You want to be the commander-in-chief of all of those? Just bow down and serve me, and I'll give it to you. And Jesus refused it, and so have I. But we need to understand that this man has written, and I can't say it emphatically enough, that there's a man that is foolish enough to praise Satan, and then there's a man foolish enough to praise the man that praised Satan. And there are people foolish enough to follow the man that praised Satan. What is happening in our world today? What is happening? What is happening? That Satan can get such eminence that people would worship those that have praised the very beast himself. But you know, the Bible told us the time was coming where it would be stated, well, who can make war against the beast? Who can do so? And those that have received
Senator Barack Obama gave a speech to the Call to Renewal Conference where he explained why he finds it so difficult for America to use the Bible to help guide our public policy.
Which passages of Scripture should guide our public policy? Should we go with Leviticus, which suggests slavery is okay? Or we could go with Deuteronomy, which suggests stoning your child if he strays from the faith? Or should we just stick to the Sermon on the Mount, a passage that is so radical that it's doubtful that our own Defense Department would survive its application? Folks haven't been reading their Bible.
Senator Obama, after you so arrogantly mocked and ridiculed the books of Leviticus, Deuteronomy, and the Sermon on the Mount, taking those passages of the Bible so painfully out of context, you then condescendingly stated that, quote, folks haven't been reading their Bible, unquote, as if the American people don't know what's in there. The real question is, do you know what's in there, Senator? For instance, did you not know that most Christians and historians agree that the Sermon on the Mount contains the most spiritually inspiring words ever uttered by Jesus Christ or any other religious leader? And as far as your sarcastic remark regarding the Defense Department not being able to survive the Sermon on the Mount's application, I can assure you, Senator, that Christ would never advocate turning the other cheek to terrorists and America's enemies, as your smug laughter so clearly implied. And did you not know, Senator Obama, that the book of Deuteronomy, which you also arrogantly mock and ridicule, is what gave us the Ten Commandments? Folks, all those condescending remarks distorting our Judeo-Christian Bible did not come out of the mouth of Barack Obama's pastor, Jeremiah Wright. No.